Birkenau concentration camp, 1944 to 1945, Chapter 16. The train arrived at Birkenau at night. The cars clanked and groaned as the train came to a stop half a kilometer outside the gates. It was a cloudy night. It should have been dark, but the sky was lit up like a red bonfire. Black chimneys stood up in silhouette against a glowing sky. Let's see what silhouette means, you guys. Dark shape, an outline of someone or something visible against a lighter background. Shooting flames from their tops, and the smell of burning flesh filled the air. I gagged. I waited for the train to move again and to take us into that awful factory. But we didn't move. We sat for what must have been hours, all of us who could see out watching the flames, knowing that was where we were going. Why were they holding us here? Was this one last torture? One last joke? Did they want to drive us to panic? To madness? If they did, it was working. The longer we waited, the more anxious I got. What was going on? Why weren't we moving? What are they waiting for? I said at last, my voice hoarse from thirst and fear. Don't you see the flames in the chimneys? A man next to me said. They have to finish off the last train load before they have room for us. I took in his words, too weak to react. We were just another raw material waiting to be processed. Shovel us in, shovel us out. I dozed again. Every time I woke, I was still in the cold train car, a dead man leaning against me. At last, the train jolted and began to move, and I woke for good to a pale yellow sun rising above the trees in the distance. They were taking us inside to the furnaces. They were taking us to die. The train car door opened. For a few steps, the dead body next to me came with us, held up between the living as we pushed for the door. But soon there was more space, and he fell, slumping to the floor with the others who had died on the trip. There were dozens of them, rag and bone skeletons who had perished of hunger or thirst or the cold or suffocation or overwork. We climbed over them, gulping in the fresh air outside before the capos and soldiers whipped us and shouted at us to line up. We assembled in a field just beyond the train cars, those of us who survived looking more dead than alive. After roll call, to see which of us were still alive, the Nazis marched us toward one of the big brick buildings with chimneys. So this was it. The reality began to sink in, and I slumped under its weight. They really were going to kill us. I had come so far, endured so much agony and suffering. I had survived the work gangs in the ghetto, baked bread under cover of night, hidden in a pigeon coop, had a midnight bar mitzvah in the basement of an abandoned building. I had watched my parents be taken away to their deaths. I had avoided Amon Goth and his dogs and survived the salt mines of Waleska and the sick games of Trisbinia. I had done so much to live, and now, here, the Nazis were going to take all that away with their furnace. I started to cry, the first tears I'd shed since Moshe died. Why had I worked so hard to survive if it was always going to end like this? If I had known, I wouldn't have bothered. I would have let them kill me back in the ghetto. It would have been easier that way. All that I had done was for nothing. In a large empty room, we were ordered to undress and pile our striped uniforms in a corner. In a different corner was another stack of clothes, silks of bright red and blue and purple and green, gypsy clothes. Now we knew who had fed the fires of Birkenau, while we waited our turn outside. I was still crying as I pulled my shirt off and added it to the pile. The tears came unbidden. Unbidden means he didn't even have to try. They just came without him trying. But I didn't try to stop them. Some of the other men were crying. Most weren't. I didn't care. I was tired of fighting, tired of being brave, tired of surviving. They whipped us and beat us again to herd us into the next room. There were shower heads that lined the ceiling. I remembered what the man on the train had said, that you died fastest if you stood underneath one of the shower heads where the gas came out. Instead, I moved away from them, near one of the stone columns set throughout the room. They packed us in again, just like on the train, but there was still a little room to move. When the door clanked shut, some of the men cried out, but now we all knew why we were here and what they were going to do to us. Some people panicked and beat on the door, yelling for the Nazis to let us out, to have mercy, to spare us. Some people cursed them. Some people closed their eyes and muttered prayers. Some just stared off into space, waiting to die. Tears streamed down my face, tears I didn't know I had left. I slid down the column to the ground, burying my head in my hands. Mother, father, my aunts and uncles, my cousins, my friends in Krakow. I missed them all so much. We waited, but no gas came. The cries of the men grew louder and more desperate. I stayed frozen to where I sat, not knowing what to think. Why were they waiting now? Maybe someone was standing on the hose, I thought crazily, and I started to giggle. Yes, that was it. Or maybe they couldn't get the fire for the furnace going. Maybe the match kept blowing out, or the kindling wouldn't catch fire. I laughed out loud at that, and a prisoner standing over me looked down at me like I was insane. Maybe I was. The Nazis had finally broken me. It was all a big joke. I could see that now. There was no rhyme or reason to whether we lived or died. One day, it might be the man next to you at roll call who is torn apart by dogs. The next day, it might be you who is shot through the head. You could play the game perfectly and still lose. So why bother playing at all? Still, the gas didn't come. I pulled myself to my feet and pushed my way through the men until I was standing right underneath the shower heads. Go on, I yelled at the shower head. Go on, do it. I dare you. I laughed again. What are you waiting for? I cried. Kill me. I give up. You win. The pipes rattled and moaned. Something was finally coming out. The men in the room got quiet, like we were all holding our breaths, and I reached my arms up toward the ceiling. Kill me, I prayed. Please kill me and put an end to this. I'm ready. Water rained down on me. Freezing water so cold it made me scream. Water, not gas. I was going to live. I laughed and cried, and so did the other men. We celebrated as we shivered, hugging one another and shaking hands. All of us granted a last-minute reprieve. Reprieve means a break by the Nazis. I was alive. And guys, I think it's funny, not funny, haha, but funny, ironic that he was so excited about being alive, he still had hope. Even though he talked before about, useless hope, but now he still has hope. I think it's pretty cool. Okay, the Birkenau concentration camp. He was there for a year. This says Birkenau was the largest of Auschwitz camps and subcamps. It was both a concentration camp and an extermination camp. Extermination means death, right, guys? Killing. In summer 1944, there were about 90,000 people imprisoned there. Over 1 million people died at Birkenau. So there's Auschwitz-Birkenau too. So it's like a part off of Auschwitz. And Auschwitz, I read somewhere that it was an old camp for the Polish army. And when the Nazis took over Poland, they took it over. And you can look there and see. It says SS War Industries, IG Farben. So there's a factory, I guess. There's a station, that one we probably see in the picture. There's SS workshops and armament industry, so there's another factory there somewhere. The crematoriums were places where dead bodies were burned. They ran by night to keep up with the number of prisoners the Nazis were killing. In the photo above, the crematorium had 5 triple ovens. Each oven could hold 5 bodies. Each crematorium could burn 1,440 bodies a day. The photo at the right shows the smoke from an active crematorium. So someone saw what the Nazis were doing. I don't know who took this picture. This looks like this is in a town. But if you look, the smoke rising up out of that chimney is from a crematorium. It's when they're burning the dead bodies. And these are the ovens. These are the doors that open up. And when you go to the Holocaust Museum, they have moved in some of these. The train arrived at Birkenau. The cars clanked and groaned as the train came to stop half a kilometer outside the gates. This is a famous picture that you'll see over and over again of the gate at Birkenau at Auschwitz. And these are the electric fences that still stand there. We climbed over them, gulping in the fresh air outside before the capos and soldiers whipped us and shouted for us to line over. So here's the train cars. This is an actual photograph of the prisoners getting off. And there are bodies lying down here of the dead. They're just stepping over them. Some prisoners were sent immediately to the gas chambers on arrival from the train. Others were kept alive to work at the camp. Those chosen as workers were sent to the sauna, first to be disinfected in showers. Then they had their hair cut, their clothing disinfected to kill lice, and were registered into the system. So the sauna would be like a bathhouse, a public, like a place to take a bath. So they wanted to kill all the critters for the ones they were going to use to work. There's a picture of a shower room. You see the shower heads? They didn't know the difference between a shower room and a gas chamber. This is the gas chamber. Gas chamber interior, many were meant to look like showers, so unsuspecting prisoners would simply walk in. Rarely the system would malfunction and the victims would live. So they had that set up to look, if you went into a gas chamber, that had it set up to look like a shower. So it would keep people calm and they would be obedient, but they didn't do it that way. They dropped in the pellets, and the fumes from the pellets were what killed you. These are the pellets, the Zyklon B. Zyklon B insecticide, meant to kill bugs and critters, was used in the gas chambers to produce cyanide gas. The poison turned walls permanently blue. The gas was pumped through square openings in the roof. And everything I've read where they say gas pumped, it was just they opened a hatch and emptied these. See where this is open, this canister? There were little crystals in there. Little tiny blue-looking crystals. And they just dumped them right down on top of the prisoners' heads. And they would get in there, and when they got in the air, they would interact with the air and create this gas that would fill the room. And it would take them like 15 or 20 minutes to die. And it was sealed up airtight so that you would breathe it in. It's like I told you before, like if you were cleaning the bathroom with some cleaner like bleach, you have to have the door open, you have to have it aired out, or it can make you sick and give you a really bad headache or worse. But it takes a lot and a while. You have to stay in there a while. So see the blue on the walls is from where that gas has done it.